You got to sort of step back and accept that crypto is a very, risky asset. Of course, we all love it, but at the end of the day, it's very risky. It can lead to significant returns. But whenever there is like a really stressful event, it's often the first thing that people look to cash in to get back some liquidity. And therefore, that's why it also can just plummet in price very quickly when you get that cascading effect.
Welcome back to another episode of the Ben and Bergs podcast. I'm Ben, your favorite high school dropout and founder of Collective Shift. Alongside me is Bergs, your favorite MBA and COO of Collective Shift. Join us as we bring you world-class crypto research and strategies to help you dominate this crypto bull market, as well as behind-the-scenes view of us scaling a fully remote subscription research business here in Australia. And if you like the podcast, we'd love for you to leave us a review, share it around, or a subscribe. It's how we bring the podcast to you each and every week, completely free. With no affiliates, no advertising, no nonsense, giving you the beans on how to win in crypto. And today we've got another amazing guest, someone that's been on the podcast before, but he was playing a supporting role. This time he's in the hot seat. Matt Willemsen, the head of research at Collective Shift, the company that we all work for. He oversees our research team and produces quality content related to crypto assets and blockchain technology. Matt has worked in the crypto space since 2017 as a writer, reporter, and independent researcher, and he holds a bachelor's degree in business from Monash University, double majoring in accounting and economics. And when he's not deep down the crypto rabbit hole, Matt enjoys hiking and running, as well as spending time with friends and family. And I've been working with Matt for, Matty, 7 years, 6 years.
Well, that's where we're a lot younger in crypto years as well. About 6 years or so.
6 years, wow. So I absolutely love working with Matt. He is the most knowledgeable guy I know in crypto, and he has the track record to prove it. So Matt has helped thousands of our members over the course of Collective Shift journey. And now along with his research team, they deliver to over 1,000 paying clients of ours and members in our membership platform at Collective Shift, as well as our platinum members. Matt delivers all of our masterclasses, all the research. We have B2B partners, so we deliver research and content to some of the leading exchanges and brokerages in Australia and across the world. And Matt oversees all of that, as well as his altcoin analysis and just understanding the market trends have been phenomenal. Like, going right back, Matt put out a post back when Bitcoin was bottoming around November 2022 when he was starting to buy. And that turned out to be within a few days of the bottom, which is an epic sort of time to buy Bitcoin. Shared Pendle, a new altcoin, or was a new altcoin at 14 cents on the platform, and it got to as high as 50x this investment, which was nuts. Oof. And as well as Solana, when Solana had that sort of big dip, that was one of his first investments that he shared in 2 years, and since then it's done about a 6 or 7x, as well as helped a bunch of our members avoid FTX about a week or so earlier before FTX blew up. We had a post go out to help people avoid that before it imploded. So Matt, you've got a record, mate, that is one of the best in the world, I would think, and it's awesome to work with you, man, and you've helped a lot of members, so it's awesome to have your time to jump on today.
Yeah, let's get into it. And no better week, really, in terms of just talk about eventful and volatility. I'm happy to dig into sort of what has happened, try to unpack it, and sort of, I guess, give you all an understanding of what's coming up. But yeah.
Yeah, Matt. I'd love to start with just obviously, as the time of recording, Wednesday the 7th in Australia, there's been a lot going on. We had the big, liquidation events that occurred on Monday when Bitcoin and the wider crypto market and macro markets plummeted. We've now seen a bit of a bounce and correction. Could you just quickly take us through kind of what happened, why we saw a massive sell-off, and then maybe why we're starting to see an initial bounce off the lows in the last, day or so?
Yeah, so like a lot of things, there's always, multiple reasons why prices go up or down. In this case, it was, quite unique in the sense that there was one very, very obvious and significant reason, and it was all just the domino effect after, I think last week, the Japanese sort of central bank lifted interest rates for, I think, the second time since 2007. So it went from like a 0 to 0.1 sort of percentage range that they have, and they bumped that up to 25 basis points. And they sort of also, in their press conference, sort of their language was sort of, it surprised the market, to keep it simple. That led to a lot of volatility in the yen, like foreign exchange markets, really strengthened the yen. Again, like very simple terms, the Japanese yen has just been getting absolutely hammered for decades, weakening compared to USD, even Australian dollars. You've probably got a lot of friends or family who are going to Japan in the last couple of years. It's not really, it isn't really a coincidence. It's because the Japanese yen, the exchange rates looked very favorable. And yeah, all of a sudden the yen just started to rip higher, strengthened, not something it has not done in a very long time. That freaked out a lot of like lending and borrowing markets and created a lot of like margin calls. Essentially, a lot of sort of people who were borrowing Japanese yen ended up just losing a lot of money and having to scramble to get back to pay off any of the calls that they had. So that resulted in just high extreme volatility. I think it was the only third time, I think, the volatility index. So to really put it in context, the volatility index, just a sign of just stress in the market. It was the third time in this century that has gone above, I think it was 60. So the other two times were the GFC and also like the COVID sort of panic. So that just really gives you a sense of how panicked everyone was globally, and it trickled into crypto.
And Matt, do you want to just share, like, in terms of, I think sometimes crypto investors think that the world evolves around crypto and that nothing else sort of impacts crypto outside of it, if that makes sense. And really, that is the opposite of the truth. You know, the reality is the macro markets have a significant impact. And when you have this macro technical issue, it's going to hit crypto pretty hard. And what we saw was, you know, for example, Jump Crypto that were, you know, offloading what seemed to be all of their ETH on a Sunday in the US, which is very odd. Can you just maybe walk us through what happens when you start to get these liquidation events trickling into crypto and why we see markets go down so fast, so quick?
Yeah, I think you got to sort of step back and accept that, crypto is a very risky asset. Of course, we all love it, but at the end of the day, it's very risky. Can lead to significant returns, but whenever there is like a really stressful event, it's often the first thing that people look to cash in to get back some liquidity. And therefore, that's why it also can just plummet in price very quickly when you get that cascading effect. And that is what I assume entities like Jump Crypto were having to do to pay off maybe other things in other sort of, I guess, financial reasons, such as borrowing cash, for example, or borrowing even Japanese yen more specifically. So that's why it is always interconnected to I suppose, what is happening in the world of macro. It's sort of a bit frustrating at times as like a crypto investor to see the correlation between like Bitcoin's price action and like the NASDAQ and how it's performing. Often it can be very strong. So if I wake up and see the NASDAQ has gone up 1% yesterday, I can be pretty confident that Bitcoin is going to go up by 1% or call it thereabouts. At other times, like it almost just is its own echo chamber where Bitcoin just does its own thing, NASDAQ does its own thing, a very weak correlation. So that is always like a bit frustrating as an investor. But at this stage, it was extremely correlated just because of how relevant, like how significant this event was. So yeah, I definitely remember in 2022, that's probably a time, to your point, Ben, where there was our little bubble of crypto where there was just internal credit crises where Terra collapsed, and then that you led Three Arrows Capital, BlockFi, other lenders, and it was almost this little systemic sort of bubble that was just like bombs were going off everywhere and crypto prices were tanking all the while the macro world just went on like happy days. Nothing was really affecting them. So that's like the difference between like those sort of internal events and those like endogenous events or macro events that can really affect crypto prices.
That's right. Yeah, the internal ones were like cascading failures within the ecosystem.
Yes.
And this one, like the big advantage of crypto is it's open 24/7, 100% of the time. traditional markets are about 19% of the time. And think about this. If you have to cover something and you have to get money quickly, it's going to be at least T+2 in a traditional market. In crypto, it's instant 24/7. So that's going to be the first thing to go to get liquidity sucked out of it if you need to cover a loan.
Yeah, 100%, which is probably what happened with Jump, right? That's, we don't really know, but that's exactly right, Bergs. Like if you're getting liquidated on a Sunday, you're not going to be able to go and just withdraw a bunch of equity or stock out of your positions. It's like crypto is like the only liquid thing you can get your hands on.
You have like a big player do something like that. The market starts to move. You start to get news. Then retail also have access to crypto 24/7. So instead of just freaking out during market hours and having time to think about it 19% of the time, you get to freak out 100% of the time. And you can always put that trade on and make that emotional trade. And that's when it really starts to cascade.
So, Matt, in terms of, what we've sort of see play out, Bitcoin dominance is starting to reach 4-year highs. I think Bitcoin dominance, excluding stable coins, up to sort of 70%-ish, levels not seen since 2020. In the past, Bitcoin dominance hitting these sort of levels has actually been more of an indicator that we start to see an altcoin season, but I'm not entirely sure if that's going to be true this time around, just considering the market participants being very little retail, mainly bigger wallets, I believe, that are in the space buying up predominantly BTC, ETH, Solana. Do you foresee this being a turning point more positive to altcoins, or do you think this is actually more of a deterrent away from altcoins performing well in the medium term?
Medium term, I'm still confident Bitcoin dominance will come down. Short term, I definitely think it will stay at these levels, if not maybe trend slightly higher while all of this gets sorted out. But to your point, like yes, I believe Bitcoin dominance will fall in the medium term. The big difference this time is the extent to which it falls. I highly suspect won't be anything like it has in the past. So that will mean we won't see this raging alt season where everyone's just winning by choosing any random altcoin that all sort of go up together. It won't be as dramatic as that.
Yeah, I agree. I think this cycle is different in a sense that you just look at the volume of coins in the market. There is infinitely more crypto projects out there. I think a lot of the older chains, we've been harping on about this for a long time. A lot of the older chains, older coins, as arguably probably won't perform as well as others. So trying to find those right projects, I think, is important. Matt, so basically what we've seen today or in the last hour or two is the Bank of Japan, what seems to be announced that they're not going to increase rates anymore. They've sort of backflipped while the market, there's some very political words they're using, but basically they're like, fuck, we can't increase it now. Look what that did, in a real sense. Do you think that this will trickle into the US, getting the money printers going again? We already saw, I think I saw this morning, potentially a plan to start buying back some bonds or something. Where do you think this goes? And do you think the bottom is potentially done? Like outside of, my opinion is that I think the bottom is forming unless something again dramatic happens at a macro level. It seems that we're potentially bottoming. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the thing to really highlight here is the timing of all of this being an election year. I think this is definitely, again, we will never be able to know this stuff, but I think there are I wouldn't be surprised if there's forces at play that have maybe a phone call has come the way of the Japanese central bank to say, oh, maybe just undo what you did just last week. Because why? Because the Democrats currently are in power. And if they were to let this uncertainty continue, it would very likely result in stock prices going down and other assets, people just losing a lot of money. And for political reasons, as we know, that isn't very, doesn't lend itself to being a lot favorable towards the Democrats. By the time the elections come, you have a lot of voters who are just annoyed, disgruntled, and well, maybe another candidate like Trump would be able to help my asset portfolio or whatever. So I think those forces could be at play here. And if that is true, and if these news that has just been coming through before the podcast started, I think there was comments from one of the people in that central bank saying they were thinking about unwinding their decision If that is true, I definitely think there's like a very strong argument that the bottom like is in. I'd be willing to say that. And we just sort of continue going on to what everyone is expecting to play out in the second half of this market. To your point, Ben, the US actually starting to cut rates in September. We've already seen other central banks around the world doing that as well in recent months, which all is, you know, really good for crypto prices in simple terms.
Okay, awesome, Matt. So has this pullback or correction changed your outlook in any way, shape, or form, or you've still got that same vision of how this plays out over the next couple of years?
Yeah, over any time frame, even like short term, like it hasn't changed my outlook. It was really all just technical reasons, really. If it was something to do with like all of a sudden the economic outlook being terrible for the US in particular, or like particularly that reason, or something else, like sure, it could have, but nah, definitely not.
What would have to happen for you to go, no, my thesis here is invalid? This is not going to play out the way we think.
There's a few ways that where that would just invalidate things. So at the moment, my rolling sort of outlook is like most people really. I think around March, April, May, somewhere like that, I expect to be the peak of the bull market. A big reason for that just being historic timing from the halving, you know, as one sort of input for that, but other reasons as well. I'm sure you've discussed a lot, like global liquidity, other macro conditions that are all sort of lining up for that same sort of cycle to play out. So reasons why that would no longer be my running sort of outlook would definitely be just a very, you know, calamitous event in global markets. Particularly sort of the outlook for the US economy just going badly. Like that would, again, too importantly, that's more for, you know, from now over the next like 9 months or so. Again, as you've always probably discussed on this podcast, a lot of it just ends up being money printing at the end of it, stimulus. So like longer term, I would still be extremely confident, you know, Bitcoin in particular and some other majors would do well. Other events, even short term, that could really, again, just make me a bit more just cautious about crypto as a whole would be a lot more, I suppose, action in terms of the regulatory side of things, rather than at the moment, it's a lot of talk, posturing, things like that. But if they were all of a sudden to introduce a bill that was extremely restrictive and all the crypto industry just like wasn't a fan of it, but the regulators just didn't care and they just still pushed it through and the president signed off on it, like that would of course be very like bleak for the outlook for crypto, particularly over like the short to medium term.
That's very key. And what Matt has said there is fundamentally nothing has changed for crypto. And over the last few days, a lot of people have lost their minds and changed away from their strategies, been emotional and done trades they probably shouldn't have. And we all know that investing rewards the patient. Money moves from impatient hands to patient hands. And if we think about this particular event, I think everyone in our company was quite calm because it's water off a duck's back. It's what we're used to. And we see it for what it is. And events will always happen. Markets will always have corrections. But you need to look at that and say, okay, last week I thought this about crypto. Well, let's just choose Bitcoin because it's easy to talk about. I thought this about Bitcoin. This week, has anything in Bitcoin fundamentally changed, or has the price just changed? And it's just the price. So if that's all it is, and your strategy is around accumulating more crypto and accumulating more Bitcoin, it is now on a fire sale. This is the point where you make your money and you accumulate. It's not a point to get scared or emotional. But like Matt said, there's not heavy regulation. There hasn't been a huge shakeup within the industry. There hasn't been anything fundamental that has happened to change our thesis about crypto. So it's business as usual and keep going and carry on. Because Matt, the end of this year leading into next year is absolutely stacked with crypto favorable events that are going to happen.
Oh yeah, sure. It's like, I'm not sure how much time we've got to talk about this stuff, but just they're all lining up really, just like, you know, the election in November, and also just what I talked about earlier, like the incentives for the Democrats, at least not to make the market crash. Like sure, you could get that extreme side of it where they want to make it like just rally. But I don't think it's going to be anything negative in terms of markets, put it that way. And then, just other reasons like global liquidity has been trending up for a while now, which after, a couple of years of sort of pulling back. And then also just, the monetary policy side of things, a lot of central banks starting to cut rates, which of course just, increases the appetite for risk, like for assets, including cryptocurrency. But other reasons as well. But
Oh mate, I can't wait. It's like it's a stacked roster, man. It's so good.
Oh yeah,
like, this is like a concert lineup for or festival lineup. You'd be losing your mind. Like it's so good.
And the big thing here is people then like the big thing here is people then get worried. Like, okay, if everyone's like, oh, this looks like an amazing setup. Am I as an investor, maybe should I be thinking contrarian and be like, oh, position myself sort of against that happening. I get that question a lot over the years, and the big thing I always say here is like you're only listening to like a very tiny bubble of people who are the survivors of all these years, who are the ones who are now very confident, and that can appear as your consensus if that's your whole input of crypto information. But talk to anyone on the street, and they haven't looked at Bitcoin in years, and they will only get interested, once prices have already gone through all-time highs.
That's exactly right. And we've touched on it a bit here, but I want to go a bit deeper into investment mindset, things to look out for, and common traps, because we have a lot of experience in this area, being in crypto for quite some time. And we're in that kind of boring period between the halving and when things really pop off. We have had one event this week where there's been a liquidity crush and prices have gone down, 20+%. Up to 50% in some altcoins. But it's also that boring period where, you accumulate against your strategy. Should I be doing more? There's FOMO. I'm going to miss out. Are you able to walk us through, Matt, some of those common traps and what will help people in terms of mindset, just the things you've seen and experienced over the years?
Yeah, particularly even in the context of this, I'm already starting to see it a bit this week as we've started to correct. One big thing I encourage investors to think about is, it sounds simple, but just like looking at it even on a chart, or this understanding of, just because something goes down, 50%, it needs to then go up 100% for it just to get back to break even. So you're seeing, I guess, why am I talking about that now? I think you're seeing a lot of charts now on social media showing like the best bounces, if you will, like, which altcoins are going up the highest. But if you actually just then go back to what it was last week, it's still at a lower price than last week. So yes, like momentum is a big thing in investing in crypto in particular. So it's helpful to see which ones are outperforming the other altcoins. But at the end of the day, they're all down still. So a big one is just if something's down 20%, needs to go up 25% to get back to break even. If something is down 30%, it then needs to rally by 43% just to go back to break even. So like, by far, that's like a big just trap I see people falling for, in terms of, if I am like putting my money into an altcoin today, if it's gone down 30%, am I happy? Am I confident? And if I've already held it and it's gone down 30%, like, do I still think it can go up 43%? And if the answer's sort of no, then it's sort of like, well, maybe consider either just selling it or just not investing in it.
And Matt, I want to touch back on a point that you made before around like shorter term, holders and people that come into the market and sell down and panic, and the fear that, Bergs was talking about. There was a chart that I was looking at yesterday around the liquidations of short-term Bitcoin holders, and you can see that there was huge increase of short-term holders. So I think that the definition of short-term is like less than 3 months, who came in, bought and sold over the last few days and are down significantly. And that's only showcasing, Bitcoin on chain. That's not showing all the centralized exchanges where all the retailing investors actually are. And so it was your point, Matt, around just like getting a viewpoint of where your data is around the sentiment of crypto, and like when you think everyone's on one side of the trade, but reality is you're just listening to 15 very loud people on Twitter. It's like, that's not the reality of the actual situation. The actual situation is no one really has an idea of what they're doing. They come into crypto because they think they're going to make money. Then they wake up, it's down 35%, and they watch some YouTube influencer saying it's going to go to zero. And it's just like they panic and then sell. And that just happens over and over and over and over again. And that's really where you get these huge sell-offs, and where the opportunity comes from is buying when there's blood in the streets, and there has been blood in the streets the last couple of days. And it takes some kahunas to back yourself and buy the dip if it's your first rodeo, because you're like, well, maybe this is it. You know, and even some of the platinum members I was speaking to, it's like, they're, you know, even if you've been in the market for a long time, there's still that, there's always that little whisper, you know?
It's like what Checkmate said, where like you feel uncomfortable about it. That's how you know it's going to be a good trade.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that psychology of any investing, but even particularly crypto, given that the future of it is, well, it's so undefined as a whole asset class. It's like, yes, Bitcoin started in very early 2009, but like the Bitcoin started exchanges were more like 2011, and it wasn't until the Ethereum and the ICO era where like a lot of the crypto market infrastructure and all that, and people just in general got interested in crypto. So this asset class in many ways is still like 7, 8, even 9 if you're being generous years old. So people just don't really have any idea of like how high or what could happen in the future. So when they see the number go down, 30%, and they don't really fully understand the reasons behind it, you can understand why a lot of people then just do panic and sell. But yeah, that is an opportunity for those who have more of a context and understanding about what is driving price.
Yeah, spot on. Now, Matt, I want to get in the beans of a question that a lot of us have on our mind, and a lot of our members, me as well, around the Ethereum Solana pair. And we've seen today that this ETH Sol pair has hit another high in terms of Solana basically outperforming ETH. What are your thoughts on ETH versus Solana at the moment? Obviously, Solana's performed extremely well. And again, for listeners of Ben and Bergs, if you're not a member, you may not have heard me say this, but I believe there's a world where ETH and Solana both live, right? There's a world where Android and Apple both live. There's a lot of people that like to think that only one's going to survive, and which camp are you on, and you're going to be shot. Yeah, you're going to be shot if you're not on one camp. I own both. I am bullish on both, right? But Solana has been outperforming Ethereum now for a little while. And then you could sort of bundle layer twos into this sort of category of just, market underperformance in correlation to other assets. Matt, what's your take on that? Do you think that's just been a narrative-driven piece? Do you think it's just because of, a lot of the activity and meme coin activity has been happening on Solana? Obviously we've got the ETF that's launched. We've had positive ETF flows last day or two with ETH. Fundamentally, this feels strong to me, the ETH play, but underperforming, which is usually a good sign that the returns are near, but there's always that just inclination of like, is this time different?
Yeah, definitely. Right. Yeah, you could say the same thing about, even at the start of this year, like Polkadot or Cardano or something. They've been underperforming in the back half of 2023. And if you're at the start of this year, you could be like, oh, that means like they're going to come back. But like, again, if the fundamentals aren't there, that's definitely not going to always happen. But to your point, Ben, you're arguing, and like I agree in many ways, the fundamentals are there. So why does it continue to just bleed against particularly Solana, which in many ways is its biggest rival? But of course, I agree that both will exist in many years to come. So like the big thing I always point out here is like, yes, the Solana price went down to $8 after the FTX collapse. It was, the ecosystem was on its knees, and many people wrote it off, of course, as the story goes. It's already did get up to as high as about 220 or so earlier this year. So just like extreme gains for sure, but from that very, very low base. If you're talking about like the outlook from now, the picture is a lot different. Like I definitely don't expect Solana to do like another repetition of like whatever 8 from 150. Definitely don't expect it to do that again from now to the end of the bull market. But even ETH, like it still is so far below its previous all-time highs and just can get no momentum. And I think momentum's a big thing I'd just use as my biggest reason why this underperformance has been going on. There's just, well, we could talk for a long time about like the challenges with ETH at the moment from an investor's point of view. And even if there is new investors coming into the space, the confusion about why people buy it. There's the argument of like unit bias, a very simple one. It just saw it's $2,500. Solana's $150. Why not just buy that? It's cheaper. But obviously also all the L2 stuff, you know, people, there's like literally like over 50 Ethereum layer 2s now. And now there's also Ethereum mainnet. So people are like, if I'm just using one of the 50 L2s, yes, I need ETH but all the transactions are still so cheap. I don't actually need that much ETH to use this stuff. So that argument, again, just that leaking and that sort of like damaging of that united identity. Like it all sounds, but if you've been long enough in the space, you can sense it. There's definitely like factions of Ethereum spread around everywhere, whereas Solana has this, you know, unification. Everyone is just like all on the main blockchain itself. It's that monolithic blockchain as like we like to call it, but that's from an architectural standpoint. But it also, I think, comes back to like that community standpoint, which in crypto, again, because there's no like really standardization of metrics and all that, like community narrative sentiment is an enormous factor in price. And as you said, Ben, the meme coins have been one of the biggest use cases of this cycle so far, or at least from where it was previously. And therefore that's all happening on Solana because it's all the one chain. And if people are using it on Solana, they're enjoying it. They're enjoying the, you know, speculation side of things. So a lot of that demand comes back to Sol, and it's all everyone is sort of seems to be talking about because everyone is talking about meme coins, which is happening on Solana. So in terms of reasons why it's underperformed, I think I've touched on some of them, but there's several other reasons I could get into. But yeah, it's a complicated one, but definitely it is, I think, the story of the bull market so far in terms of ETH v Sol.
And Matt, if we take the last 6 months, where would you have spent most of your time exploring? Would it be on the Ethereum network or Solana network? And then in terms of capital deployment, have you deployed more capital into Ethereum network or the Solana network?
I think exploring like on chain, I would say it's about 50-50 at the moment. Like I spend a lot of my time on like my like personal sort of just like, I guess, you know, time on chain, just like, you know, researching and using certain stuff. I would say I'm a big user of like Zora and Base. So they're two Ethereum L2s. But then I also, do spend like, the other 50% of my time just on Solana and seeing, even just like seeing the meme coin sort of metrics and seeing like just the amount of like attention that's coming to these meme coins and just almost observing it in a sense and building my understanding of how strong that is, which there are, you know, reasons to why people are getting, you know, bullish on meme coins. But then also just other use cases of Solana. I think another point, even just off the top of my head, is I think a big thing in crypto is even just number of things to get excited about or number of upcoming catalysts. I think Ethereum is much further along than Solana, so there isn't as many even technical things to get excited about, where Solana, they've got like a number of catalysts that, you know, Ethereum probably did back at this stage in the last cycle. So that's even another thing I think people are getting excited about. But in terms of my capital deployed, like I actually now hold more, like I actually hold more Sol than ETH. I think all of our analyst team now actually do. And also just Solana based assets like Jupiter and Jito, like I also hold, whereas Ethereum based assets, like I do have some, like they're on the trust and transparency page, and they're I'm bullish on them for other reasons, but to Ben's point, like they're both going to exist, and I think it's time people just stop trying to pick sides.
And this is so interesting. So more capital deployed in Solana, is that also because you got some sick airdrops and that really built up the bag? Or is it active, like I've got money, I'm putting my money into the Solana ecosystem?
Yeah, I think it's the latter. I know a lot of people got, like, even in our team, some of them were one of the under 10,000 addresses in the world that got the Jito airdrop, which was sort of the catalyst for this airdrop season. I unfortunately wasn't one of them, but in terms of capital deployed, probably like similar amounts to the Ethereum side of things, but the returns have been like so great that I haven't even considered selling yet, even though the weighting of my portfolio allocation has gone up a lot in terms of Solana holdings. Like, I'm just, I don't know, call me just like way too confident, but I'm still, given my experience and the timing of my bull market sort of expectations, I still think Solana like has a long way to go from when I told members that I was buying it. I think it was around $20 or early 20s.
I'm the only one here that actually doesn't own any Sol, like a minuscule amount just to play around with, right? Not even worth talking about.
Got no Sol.
Got no Sol, mate. Got no Sol. I'm now feeling chronically underexposed, mate. I might have to scoop some up in the coming months.
Well, yeah. Here's the thing as well. Like, Bergs, like, I know you're a lot further along as well in terms of just like how much, like, you know, capital you personally like look after and things like that. And there's a strong argument that holding it in Bitcoin and ETH is perfectly fine. But if you want to take more risk, which there definitely is a lot more risk with holding Sol, for reasons to do with even just technical, the performance has always been an issue for Solana. Some people say that's bullish because like everyone's using it, but still, it still gets pushed to a point, even just recently, where it just continues to buckle, even at the infrastructure layers and sort of the RPCs or the MetaMask equivalents, if you will, have started to like struggle with so much demand. And even just like, other reasons why Solana's architecture or infrastructure is just still a lot more riskier, like, or uncertain compared to Ethereum. And there's some other reasons why like Solana is riskier than Ethereum, but that's definitely a big one. So again, it depends on your investment goals really and what you're trying to get out of investing in crypto.
Absolutely. And this is one of the things that held me back, where, you know, the technology and pausing the blockchain. I'm quite a purist when it comes to blockchains, you know, with, you know, you want decentralization, you want it to be permissionless, censorship resistant, neutral, borderless, all the good stuff, right? And you have varying degrees of that. But just seeing even the group chats we're in, Matt, with the lads, like all the different crypto lads going after all these crazy meme coins, just the amount of attention it's getting and how the innovation happens so quickly on Solana. I've been thinking about this for a while, to the point where I'm going to allocate 1 to 2% of my portfolio to Solana, because it does have the ear of the people. People are using it, and it's kind of, people are over here in Bitcoin and it's a store of value. They know what it is. They're putting their money in it. They're over here having lots of fun in Solana, doing amazing things. And Ethereum, from a customer point of view, is somewhat caught in the middle, where it still has a lot of utility and value and people are using it, but it's not at those extreme ends. And now only extreme people are in the market, right? That
last point was great. But it's essentially, it's got the last like 18 months for Ethereum, like you can just say in 2 words, it's identity crisis, really. Like it doesn't have a brand or an identity, really. If you do have to explain its identity or brand, you will end up sort of talking for 30 seconds to 90 seconds at least, and you'll still probably have the other person at the end still with a bunch of questions. But Solana and Bitcoin, you can summarize them in just like under 10 seconds, very simply.
The Solana clicked for me when we're in the group chat and someone will just screenshot the latest meme where it's like Bowden or something else, and I'll just get it instantly. I'll be like, that's hilarious. I'm like, all right, I get the use case. It's fun. And you get to gamble on meme coins. Great. I understood it in a quarter of a second.
Yeah.
Matt, I wanted to know any other altcoins that you got your eyes on. Obviously, we share a lot of all of these insights and buys and sells. Let's give the Ben and Bergs listeners that are not members just a little bit of alpha. Can you give us a couple that you're looking at, or ones that you're still bullish on this cycle?
Yeah, the one that I sort of brought more recently, and it's one that I haven't I've watched for the last 5 years or so and never been interested in buying it because of, well, I think for valid reasons, it never ended up performing that well, even though it's the largest DeFi project and it's the largest sort of real world asset project. I think more experienced crypto people know I'm talking about Maker. MKR is one I still expect to do very well this bull market. It's well, talk about brand and identity. It's got a very like poor brand in the sense from a investors getting excited about it sort of angle. That is about to change with this big end game upgrade, where I've talked a lot for Collective Shift members about why end game is a big enough reason for me to go from not being interested in Maker at all to all of a sudden actually putting my money into the MKR token and expecting it to do really well. And another one that's like probably, you know, lower down the market cap ranking and a bit more, well, definitely a lot more newer than something like Maker is Echelon Prime or Parallel. Again, I've sort of admittedly, I have held that, you know, since I think it was about $3. So it did get up to about 30 at the like towards the start of this year. You know, mistake or hindsight's 2020, but I didn't take any profits, admittedly. So we're back down to about $7 or $8 or $9, something like that. However, I'm still bullish on the outlook for that. Again, for Collective Shift members, sort of had to explain that, you know, these things about, you know, how active do you want to be as a crypto investor? Like Prime is one where I would emphasize the need to be more active than another just generic altcoin holding. The big reason for that is that Prime has this sort of new token coming out tied to another project that the founding team is sort of building. You know, that can sound like a red flag in many cases, but in this case, and the token is...
Let's make a new project to pay for the current project.
Exactly. The token is actually necessary for this new project. So they're actually giving like 40% of the supply to sort of people who are like staking essentially their Prime tokens. So it's sort of like, yeah, you're getting an airdrop, a big airdrop coming down the line for those people. And then just thirdly, out of the three that I would sort of highlight is Jupiter. It's the Uniswap equivalent of Ethereum, to put it very simply. There's a lot of other things that Jupiter is trying to be now, like a perps exchange. So think DYDX. Also, they're trying to be sort of like what Binance Launchpad is doing by being a place where projects launch. So Jupiter is doing many things, and I think it's becoming synonymous with Solana itself. Like when people think Uniswap or MetaMask, they think Ethereum, and Jupiter is now sort of the go-to place for really doing anything on Solana in many ways. Sure, there's always these exotic or, you know, these auxiliary things that people get into, but for anyone using Solana, I would struggle to find anyone who's never used Jupiter. So that brand thing is huge. Of course, there's other reasons why the Jupe token actually would accrue value, but that's one I'm also excited about for the rest of this bull market.
Love it. And all that alpha you've been sharing for a long time now in the members platform, and personally I'm involved in those projects as well, and it's been happy days since getting in those. So thank you, Matt. Matt, is there anything else you wanted to share, mate, before we look to wrap things up? Any other alpha insights, trends, mistakes, anything that you wish to share and deploy some knowledge to the Ben and Bergs listeners?
Yeah, and any narratives as well. And I also want to touch on Matt's personal investing.
Yeah, sure. I think one thing is like keep having so many conversations with people holding altcoins from previous cycles. So the big thing, you know, we've been trying to emphasize in some of our content is also just ways to think about, you know, knowing when to sell ones that just haven't been performing. And one thing, you know, we really like to say is just if you were to just look at it today and you had fresh capital and you never just try to erase the fact you've owned it this time, like, would you actually be interested in buying it? And the answer to that, like, should give you the answer to what you should do with your older holdings. another big thing I see people, just like a long list of this sort of stuff. Of course, I could go on for a long time, but one related to that is also just, I think people underestimate, or investors underestimate, how quickly the market like dynamics and market structure can change. Why I'm saying that is like the likes of people who are holding Polkadot, Cardano, even BNB to an extent, but more so, those and like VeChain and other old layer ones. I think people underestimate how much things have changed. I strongly believe that their window of opportunity I didn't really think it was much of an opportunity at the time, but I didn't give them much of a chance. But that chance that they did have has well and truly gone in terms of trying to eat into Ethereum's like market share. And now Solana is well and truly in second place. And then there's a lot of daylight until you get back to those older like dinosaur chains, some people are calling them, which they'll stick around for a while because they've got ecosystem funds and stuff. But again, just like try to be as objective as possible as looking at on-chain metrics and even just how many new announcements are they bringing out and other signs of fundamentals of, are these older chains getting any traction? And again, if the answer is no and you're holding their tokens, the outlook isn't as rosy as what it was in 2018 or 2019 when there was so much less, and the market structure was like, it was anyone's there for the taking in terms of just market share and just being the dominant smart contract blockchain.
And now is a good time to go through your portfolio before we have fireworks. And you touched on the sunk cost fallacy and inertia. And I usually hear this in people's careers, and I'm like, okay, the job you're doing now, you'll be doing it for X amount of years, let's say 10 years. If you just came in now and you were in the market, would you choose this job? And the answer is generally no. And it's like, well, why are you? And it's because, well, sunk costs, because I spent so much time here, I've built this up, I don't want to lose these things. And it's just inertia. You keep going forward, you move up roles, you get higher and higher in the company, but it's not the thing you want to do. And applying that to investing as well. Yeah, this might have been a great project once upon a time, but it didn't play out the way we thought it was going to play out. But I still have hope. And it's like, first of all, hope is not a strategy and it's a sunk cost. Would you buy that today? Would you actively accumulate more? And if the answer is no, you should be doing something with those tokens and allocating projects that you think will do well in the upcoming cycle.
Very well said.
I want to get to your personal investing, mate. So I like to ask people that come on Ben and Bergs, in terms of a pie chart, how are you kind of allocated to stocks, bonds, currencies, commodities, crypto? And what are your kind of goals with at the end of this cycle or next cycle? Do you want to diversify into anything else?
I think when I do speak to people who, they find out I've been working in crypto for 7 or 8 years, and they just like, I've actually been asked like sometimes like, oh, yeah, does that mean like you're rich? Like, because I've been asked that like like it's like a meme, but it's actually like it happens, and I've experienced that even a couple of times where like they haven't even gone in a roundabout way of asking them, so have actually asked me that, and like,
isn't it weird? Like they flat out asked, they're like, oh, so you're rich? I'm like, well, no, because you get wrecked a lot. If you kept all the stuff, if I didn't buy ICOs and I didn't trade,
it's not so easy.
Yeah, I would be like stinking rich. But no, it's not that way.
I think a big thing for me getting started my career in crypto was like that was a gamble, right? And I was like, man, my career I'm investing my career into these cryptographic tokens like that you can't even touch. Yeah.
Explain that to your parents.
I was actually quite people are sort of surprised when they hear that I was a bit I did hold off investing like money because my first I obviously like brought into that like ICO era and stuff, but throughout 2018 and 19, which were deep bear markets when I was working like very much starting like full time, really. I didn't actually invest like that much into anything really. It's like those DeFi tokens and all of that. I was just really focused on like building up my just groundwork and just like my understanding of the space and my career. And then I started to get more into investing. Probably call it at least like 2020 was when I started to take it like more seriously, after a lot of like members back then were telling me how much money I'd been making them with my content. So no, it's like since then, like I have put a lot. Yeah, definitely like the definitely the majority, even like up towards like the vast majority at times of like the cycle, I suppose. Like the vast majority of my wealth has been in like even just cryptocurrencies and even NFTs back in the day. I do hold stonks or stocks as they're regularly called. You know, back I started out on like an ASX and just like trying to pick some stocks like back before crypto. You know, some of them did pretty well, some of them, you know, not so well. And I've sort of accumulated some more stocks that one in particular that I've sort of just kept adding to over the years. But I would say, yeah, the vast majority of my wealth is still like in cryptocurrencies. And I plan to like, yeah, take out, I've communicated this with members as well. Like I plan to sell 100% of my altcoin holdings. So they are ones that are not named BTC, ETH, and Solana. And I definitely will be taking a lot of my Solana off the table, but I plan to hold like some for the next cycle. ETH, I plan to sell some of and keeping some for the next cycle. And BTC, I don't expect to be selling any of it. And why am I doing that? Well, it's mainly a thing because I know that a lot of those altcoins in particular are going to go down, 70+%, very likely. It's just the nature of the space with so many people rushing in at once. But then secondly, yeah, I do see myself buying, getting in on the Australian Ponzi, and into the property market. But that would be more so just to really diversify and not be so beholden to the whims of the crypto market, which can take its toll really when you're living and breathing it every day, even work wise. Just it's a lot.
Okay, well, I think that might be it. As you were talking there, Matt, I think I was just thinking about the ETH Solana trade, and do I own enough Solana? Never own enough crypto, right? So it's promised.
Everything's on sale, mate. Now's the time.
That's it. I think like members always want to know the targets as well. Like as I said, I'm more of a time-based like investor. There's a lot of people calling for $1,000 SOL. But I think in this bull market, I definitely don't think it will get anywhere near that. So just be aware of like people just shilling it, throwing out any round prices. Just make up your own mind and your own decisions about what you want to do and get out of this cycle.
Matt, where can people follow you? Obviously, from my perspective, if you really want Matt's insights and his investments, you can come and join Collective Shift. Matt puts out all of his investments and insights, and that's ultimately where he helps the most people, and it's epic value with him and the team. If you're busy, you're time poor, and you need some help navigating the markets, Matt and the guys and myself are there to help, and Bergs. So feel free to check out the description about booking a call if you want to see if it's a good fit. But Matt, where else should people look to follow
Twitter
you?
or X is the easiest way. So it's just my name, so Matt_Willemsen, and hopefully chatting to, well, some of you I know would already be Collective Shift members, but I hope to see some of you joining the platform and getting in the comments of my posts. I always like to get back to members in there, or otherwise in the community as well, for our members that we have.
And Matt also does a weekly podcast over on the Collective Shift YouTube channel and podcast. So Matt and our senior analyst Nick do a crypto market update, 20-30 minutes every week, which is super valuable as well. If you want a very crypto specific news, insights, update, you can head over to the Collective Shift YouTube channel, or just search Collective Shift on your podcasting app. But we might wrap it up there, gentlemen. Thank you so much, Matt, again for your time. It was epic. And if you like this episode, if you think someone else would find it valuable, we'd love for you to share it around, send it to a friend, and let's get people winning the cycle.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, gents.